to do one thing. Look around the room you're in right now. Look at the corners. Look at the place your eyes usually ignore when the lights are off. Because tonight's stories are not about monsters with claws or screams in the dark. They're about the quieter things, the sounds you almost convince yourself the moment you listen, the shape in the room that looks normal until you wake up at 3 in the morning and realize it's standing somewhere it shouldn't be. Stories are a bedroom stopped, turned hostile after midnight, terrifying truth that sometimes the scariest thing in the dark for you to notice it. So settle in, turn the lights down, and if you're listening in bed tonight, try not to fall asleep. The first story begins with a man who woke up in the middle of the night and realized someone was already inside his room. Ethan had always... It was something blamed on childhood, though he never explained what exactly from childhood he meant. The kind of sleep he had was never deep enough to protect him. It allowed the world in, a creaking pipe, a shifting branch outside, a car door slamming, two things most people slept through. So when he woke up at exactly 2:13 in the morning and saw a dark shape standing in his bedroom doorway, he did not scream, because the first thing his mind was try to the shape was still, completely black against the dim blue light from the street lamp outside his window. It was too dark to make out details, but it looked like a person standing in the doorway and watching him. His first thought was that someone had broken in, but neither thought fully took. There was something wrong with the way that it stood. It wasn't moving naturally. It wasn't shifting its weight. It wasn't breathing, at least not in any way Ethan could see. It was just there, perfectly still, as if it had been put in the door under the blanket, staring. Every step made it worse. The longer he looked, the more real it felt, and the more real it felt, the less he wanted to move. His room had never looked frightening before. It was small, clean, familiar. Desk by the wall, a pile of books near a half-open closet. Nothing strange, threatening. With that shape sitting there, the room formed. Everything felt smaller, felt heavier, and silence took on a pressure of its own. He reached very slowly for his phone on the nightstand. The figure did the screen on with shaking fingers and aimed the weak light toward the doorway. It was empty, just the hall beyond it, dark, silent, ordinary. Ethan sat up immediately, breath catching in his throat. He scanned the room again. Nothing near the closet, nothing by the desk, nothing at the window. He got out of bed and checked the hallway, then the kitchen and the front door. Locked, no one there. He stood in the center of the apartment for several minutes with every light on, ridiculous, settled at the same time. Eventually he went back to bed, but sleep didn't come easily. Every few minutes he checked the doorway again. Empty. By morning, the fear had turned into embarrassment. He told himself it had been a sleep-dazed mistake, just a trick of the darkness, a shape his eyes built. Most of the day, that explanation felt good enough, until he got home that evening, because his bedroom door was closed. He never closed it, not when he lived alone, not ever. And hanging from the inside doorknob was his black hoodie, the hoodie he had been wearing the night before, placed there in a way that perfectly matched the shape he had seen, sleeves hanging like arms, the hood forming a head, a doorway. He stared, more annoyed than frightened at first, because that explained it. Of course it explained it. His brain had mistaken the hoodie for a person. Had to be it. He laughed, then reached for the hoodie and froze, because the bedroom side doorknob was higher than the outside one, and Ethan was absolutely certain he had seen there from inside the room, which meant if the hoodie made shape, someone had to place it there from the inside. He did not sleep in the apartment that night, or the next. 3 days later, he asked the landlord whether anyone had spare access. The landlord said only him, and finally moved. He told friends that wasn't the real reason. Being tired, he could handle making shape into a person dark. What he could not handle was waking up one last time in a different apartment months later and seeing a dark figure standing in the new doorway too. The same height, the same stillness, and this time when he reached for his phone, it moved, just quietly, as if it had only been waiting to see whether he was awake. Some stories begin with a shape, some begin with a sound. The next one began with something much worse, something intimate. Sometimes she heard it, it was already beneath her, breathing under the bed. Mina never believed in checking under the bed. She thought that habit belonged to children and old horror movies. By the time she was 27, living alone and paying too much rent for a studio apartment with thin walls and bad plumbing, she had no patience for irrational fear. She slept with the light off. She ignored creepy videos late at night. She watched them with the sound up, just to prove she could. The first time she heard breathing under her bed, she thought it was her imagination. It was after midnight. The room was still. Rain tapped lightly against, drifting towards sleep when something soft and rhythmic cut through the quiet. Inhale, exhale, slow, steady. Her eyes opened immediately. She did not move. At first, she thought the sound might be coming from outside, maybe through the wall, maybe from upstairs, but it was too close, too low. It was coming from beneath her. She stayed frozen, listening. Inhale, exhale. It sounded like someone trying to breathe quietly, someone lying flat beneath the mattress, someone directly under where she was sleeping. Her whole body went cold. She sat up too fast, stumbling backward off the bed. The breathing stopped immediately. That terrified her more than the sound itself, because it meant something had heard her move. She turned on the lamp with trembling fingers and stared at the bed. Nothing visible, just the blanket twisted across the mattress and shadows beneath the frame. She stood there for several minutes, trying to gather enough nerve to look. Finally, she grabbed a broom from the kitchen and jabbed it underneath. Nothing. She knelt and lifted the bedskirt slowly. Empty. Just dust, an old slipper, and a storage bin she had shoved there months ago. No one, no animal, no explanation. The next day she told herself it had been pipes, or the heater, or rain echoing strangely through the floorboards. That night, phone in hand, lowering low in the background. Nothing happened. Neither the night after that, or the night after that. By the fourth night, the fear had faded enough for embarrassment to replace it. She began to feel childish, ridiculous. So she turned off the TV, switched off the lamp, and forced herself to sleep in darkness again. At 3:08 a.m.
Story 5. The Voice in the Hallway. Jordan lived with his younger brother in a narrow townhouse inherited from their aunt. It was the kind of place that always smelled faintly of old paper and dust, no matter how often they cleaned it. The walls were thin, the stairs groaned, every room seemed to hold its breath at night. Still, it was home. And because both brothers were practical, ordinary people with no taste for horror, they ignored the odd little things. A cold patch near the laundry room, the way the hallway light occasionally flickered after midnight, the soft creak on the top step when no one was there. Nothing dramatic, nothing worth talking about, until the night Jordan woke up to hear his brother calling him from the hallway. It was 1:41 a.m. He knew the time because he checked his phone the moment the whisper reached his room. Jordan. Soft, urgent, close. He opened his eyes and listened. A few seconds passed. Then again, Jordan, come here. It was definitely his brother's voice. Not perfect, maybe, a little flatter than usual, but close enough that Jordan sat up immediately. He almost answered, almost swung his legs off the bed. Then he realized something. His brother slept in the room across the hall. If he needed something, why would he whisper from farther down the hallway instead of knocking? Jordan stayed still. The room felt suddenly wrong. The air changed. Then the voice came again. Jordan. Same softness, but now from a different spot. Not the end of the hallway. Closer. Near the top of the stairs. Come here. Jordan's mouth went dry. He reached for his phone and texted her, "You awake?" The reply came immediately. "Yeah, why?" Jordan stared at the screen. Another whisper drifted through the darkness. This time from directly outside his bedroom door. Jordan. He texted again. "Don't open your door." A long pause. Then from his brother's room, loud enough to hear through the wall, shaky voice. "I wasn't going to." Something moved in the hallway. Not footsteps, exactly. More like the sound of something dragging along the wallpaper. Slowly, past the bedroom door. Then the other. Then stopping. No one spoke for what felt like 20 minutes, though it was probably his eyes on the crack of darkness beneath. No shadow, no feet, no sign of a person. And from by the back rang one, just one. The movement in the hallway slept again that night. At dawn, when their doors at the time, it was empty. But on the wall along the were thin lines, as if something had been drawn through the paper in the dark. They never found an explanation. No open windows, no intruder, no animal. And from that night, if either of them ever heard the other's voice calling from somewhere in the house after midnight, they would text first. Because whatever was in that hallway, it knew exactly how Jordan's brother sounded. It knew his name, and it knew that if he had opened the door the first time it asked, he might, before noticing that his real voice was trembling behind another door entirely. Story 6. Sleep, face closet. Alina's grandmother rule that made no sense to anyone else in the family: never sleep facing an open closet. Not because, at least that's what her grandmother said. She just claimed that closets were bad places for the sleeping mind. Doorways inside rooms, dark spaces light touched everything else. Places where the eyes could keep building should have stopped looking for them. Years. Then, after her grandmother died, she moved into the old house temporarily while it was being sorted and sold. The bedroom she used had once belonged to her mother. Same wallpaper, same narrow closet, same old wooden doors that didn't close all the way unless pushed hard. On the first night, she left one closet door cracked open by accident. At 2:17 a.m., see that someone was standing inside it, not outside waiting.